Okay, folks, we're going to start again, and our first presenter up is Kevin Epling, and maybe joined by Al Moreno, his colleague.
Yep.
Kevin.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Epling with University Relations here on campus. As I said, as Bert said, Al may show up. He's on another assignment right now. Just as some background, I've been probably doing video for well over 24 years. Forever. Well, actually, when I used to draw and do those little flip books when I was little, so yes, see, ever. But, you know, video on the web, when I hear this, this is a quote that immediately comes to mind. And I think that Lucas was really being forward-thinking because he thought of YouTube and the Internet, and this is kind of where video comes from. But, you know, early on, I thought about, you know, where things were going a long time ago when we had to actually do the painstaking process of all the VHS dubs that everybody had to have when we did major video productions of where I used to work. You know, now we do DVDs, and now it is just as standard that you have to have a web component. You have to have a video file along with everything that you do. But one of these is that this brings to mind is everybody has to get on board. This is like this new technology. And this is the best way I can describe this. So you look at this, and YouTube brings us these gifts from the past, but you listen to this, this was really groundbreaking, that they could actually take audio and match it with video, or at the time film. You know, so now here we are, we're back trying to move forward and still do the same thing in a different fashion. But just because you can, just because we have the technology, doesn't mean you should. I'm going to come back to that later. But everybody right now, I see there's communicators in the room, there's also IT people in the room. The push is to have everything on the web. We need to just kind of be thoughtful of that. Let me tell you how I kind of got brought into the world of video on web. Back in 2002, and as Bill said, you know, they had started streaming in '99 on WKAR. In 2002, I was going to be going over to China with a colleague of mine on an expedition to document the work of Jack Liu here on campus. Now, the piece about this, as you can kind of see, it's kind of small. This was underwritten. Jack had done a grant by the National Science Foundation, NASA, and other entities. And one of the things that was written into the grant that we would actually have updates from location. Okay. Easy as cake today. Take it back in 2002, that was kind of a daunting task of how are we going to upload video. Video files are huge. Photos and text files, all on a daily basis. Let me show you my incredibly easy way of how this was worked out. The best way I can explain this slide is I had to capture everything in the field. I had to take it back to the hotel room. I had to edit this on a laptop. It was a Mac using Final Cut Pro, probably one of the very first versions. It had to be made into a QuickTime file, which then I had to find a fax machine, which was about the only thing at the time that would carry that much information. So usually this meant finding the fax machine in the business center, unplugging this, plugging in, you know, the computer and outputting it. And at that time, Apple actually had a space on their own servers where you could do a login and other people could grab things. So I had to upload it there. Somebody here, which is identified here, would download it here, then make it into the WMV file, which James talked about because that was one of the more highly used forms of getting video on the web, upload it back to our server so someone can finally see it on the internet. We were really lucky that we had a 12-hour delay, because I can tell you, standing at that fax machine in rural China took a lot of time, just so we could send you pictures of nice fuzzy pandas and video. And here you go. Here's the edit suite in the hotel room. But my favorite picture of the whole thing is that's the station, because the fax machine is right behind that water bottle station. So had to kind of stand there and plug everything in and let it load for like 2 hours. So here we go. Let's jump forward to what we're talking about today. Here's 20 years later, or not 20 years later, 10 years later. MSU today, Jim Peck and Al Moreno, who's not here with me, have already gone to Dubai, they've gone to Thailand, and they've also gone to South Africa and Malawi. In each of these cases, they've already been able to go out and shoot and do exactly what I did in a much shorter span of time because of the technology, because of YouTube, and just of what the computer systems can do at this point in time. And if we click on this, this will lead us into the story. And also I'll touch on this.
We're at the beginning of our trip, and we're sort of finding ourselves immersed in Malawi. Doing and what the students are doing.
So
here.
immediately, while they're on site,
this has already been
they can actually shoot this, edit it, and put it right to YouTube for a national audience.
That you'll appreciate
if you go back to what I was doing, people had to know
there.
what that link was. They had to know exactly what that link was to get our updates on the Panda experience. The other thing too is I want to know, how many of you know about the MSU YouTube environment? Okay. So we've started that through university relations, and as you saw in the beginning of this clip, there was a identifier slate, Michigan State University, and there's also one at the end of all the video clips. And what that does, it really, oops, got the wrong one. There you go. And what that does is that allows us to have one environment on YouTube for Michigan State University. And if anybody takes that piece of video and embeds it anyplace else, it's actually going to be identified as Michigan State University. And that's why we wanted to make sure that we had bookends on all of those. When, as Bill was saying, probably with WKAR working closely and PBS working closely with YouTube, YouTube wanted to work really closely with a lot of institutions, because some institutions, when you start all your own individual departments with your own YouTube page, it's very, very difficult to bring those all back together under one umbrella. They're all going to be individual, islands. But if we can start in one way, it's a lot easier to get everybody in one spot and have all our videos and everything would be there. And again, now technology leaps and bounds again. You can upload a video from your phone.